Namaskar. Well, friends, let me heartily welcome you all to Bhim Bhashya, my audio video podcast series on Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar. This audio video podcast series has 54 short speeches on Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar, unraveling as many as 25 different dimensions of this multifaceted genius. Friends, this podcast series is focused on Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar, his thoughts, his actions, his philosophy, and above all, the grand vision that he had for our country. This is what this podcast is all about. Friends, if you like this podcast series, like it, share it, and subscribe to it. So let's proceed. Well, friends, in this episode 10, the focus is on Dr. Ambedkar as an educationist with a social conscience. As we have discussed before, going to United States for higher education gave Dr. Ambedkar's life a new meaning, a new purpose, and rekindled in him an unsatiable quest for knowledge. Apparently, it was in the United States that Dr. Ambedkar realized fully the importance of education. He realized that for both men and women, education is the only panacea for the upliftment of the untouchables. Interestingly, in the United States, during the very first month of his stay, in a letter to an elderly family friend, Bhimrao, who was only 22 years old at that time, advised, and I quote, our, that is, untouchables, our progress would be greatly accelerated if male education is pursued side by side with female education. Let your mission therefore be to educate and preach the idea of education to those at least who are near to and in close contact with you. Unquote. Dr. Ambedkar, in fact, quoted Shakespeare, William Shakespeare, while underscoring the importance of education. The quote was, and I quote Dr. Ambedkar, who is quoting Shakespeare, "There is a tide in the affairs of men, which, if taken at the flood, leads on to fortune. Omitted, the voyage of their life is bound in shallows and in miseries." Unquote. Dr. Ambedkar practiced what he preached. He became an inspiring teacher and professor and an educationist with social conscience. Dr. Ambedkar returned to India in 1923 after having successfully completed the highest degrees from the top universities in the world. The very next year, when he entered public life in the year 1924, he formed a social organization. This social organization that he founded was called Bahishkrit Hitakarini Sabha. And what was the objective behind founding this social organization, Bahishkrit Hitakarini Sabha? The objective was promoting the spread of education among the depressed classes. The motto of this organization, as we have seen before, was educate, organize, and agitate. Education was always the top priority for Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar. The Bahishkrit Hitakarini Sabha was supposed to open libraries, hostels, and study centers. It was also supposed to start industrial and agricultural schools for economic empowerment of the underprivileged. The organization Bahishkrit Hitakarini Sabha did some excellent groundwork, starting a small library in Parel, that is Midtown Mumbai, and a hostel in Solapur for students from the depressed classes. In 1928, the Bahishkrit Hitakarini Sabha was converted. It was converted into establishment of depressed classes education society. As a nominated member of Bombay Province Legislative Council from December 1926 onwards, and as an elected member of the Bombay Province Legislative Assembly, that was 1937 onwards. Dr. Ambedkar always emphasized the importance of spread of education through his well-researched interventions in the houses of the council and assembly. For example, while speaking on school education in the Bombay Legislative Council on March 12, 1927, Dr. Ambedkar argued, among other things, that the per capita expenditure on education must be raised at least to the level of per capita revenue on the excise duty on liquor. This was a very unusual and a very interesting statement that Dr. Ambedkar made. He advocated inclusiveness in school education. And how did he propose to do that? He proposed to do that by establishing an inspecting agency so as to ensure that the students from the depressed classes are not neglected by the educational bodies. As to the higher education, Dr. Ambedkar participated extensively in the debate on the Bombay University Act Amendment Bill in Bombay Legislative Council during July and October 1927. Dr. Ambedkar offered some concrete proposals for policy reform of Bombay University. He pointed out, and I quote, "One of the greatest defects that this university has suffered ever since it was established was that it was primarily constituted as an examining body," unquote. Dr. Ambedkar critically analyzed the proposals before the Bombay Legislative Council and made positive suggestions so as to organize the University of Bombay into a better teaching university, promoting higher education and research. Dr. Ambedkar even addressed the issues such as the relationship between the syndicate, the Senate, and the academic council. Dr. Ambedkar also discussed the university relations with its constituent colleges and appointment of vice chancellor of the university. Many years later, Dr. Ambedkar founded People's Education Society in July 1945 and set up Siddharth College in Mumbai, June 1946, and set up Milind College in Aurangabad, or Sambhajinagar if you may. That was done in July 1950 in the then backward region of Marathwada. Siddharth College and its affiliated institutions launched several innovative programs. Two programs are especially noteworthy. First one was Student Parliament. Dr. Ambedkar, through Siddharth College, organized Student Parliament. So all the students used to vote and elect a government and the opposition party, and there would be a student parliament where the contemporary issues would be debated and discussed. The idea was to inculcate the values of parliamentary democracy in the minds of students at an early age. Second innovation was morning colleges. Now, this was very important. This was his famous earn and learn policy. This policy gave helping hand to thousands of poor students for their career advancement through continued education. What happened was morning colleges turned out to be a great idea for those students who had to give up their education because of the pressure from the family to start earning. They were given an opportunity to continue their education through morning colleges. So people, young ones, who had taken up jobs, lowly paid jobs, could enhance their career by attending a degree program in Siddharth College through the morning colleges. So they would come to the college, morning college, and then after that they would go to their office and perform their duties. That way, it gave 3 generations of students opportunity to promote their career by attending the morning colleges. Now, this was a great innovation that Dr. Ambedkar tried in Siddharth College. In 1956, as a matter of fact, that was the year of Dr. Baba Saheb Ambedkar's Mahaparinirvan, which took place on 6th of December 1956. In his final year, so to say, he had set up a school for political training. This is amazing. Dr. Ambedkar was probably the first educationist in India who thought about establishing a school for political training. Regrettably, with his Mahaparinirvan, the school had to be short-lived. Well, friends, we can conclude this session here and now. We move on. When we meet next, I would be presenting yet another fascinating dimension of Dr. Ambedkar's personality, his role as a provincial legislator. So long until we meet again. Let me say this, that if you like this audio-visual podcast series, like it, share it, and subscribe it. Thank you. Dhanyavad. Namaskar.